Is it some type of dimensional monster?
No way. The next wave is too far off. The countdown.
What about it?
It stopped.
What?
And now this blue number has appeared.
Do you have any idea what that could mean?
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Anime Night, where we take a particular series and a season and analyze it, dissect it, episode by episode for your enjoyment. I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this, and joining me, as always, is my lovely wife, Andrea. Andrea, I don't know what to ask anymore. Is this season cool enough for you? That's what I'm gonna do. I can't ask if it's hot or cold anymore because it just doesn't work anymore. But is this season cold enough for you?
You mean the TV series?
Yes. This current season that we're about to start, is it cold enough for you?
That wouldn't make any sense. I'm sorry.
I get it. So, welcome everybody to Rising of the Shield Hero Season 2. I have been very excited about this because once Andrea showed an interest, I think I watched I watched the first episode and maybe the second of season 1.5, and then you showed an interest, and I'm like, I gotta stop because now we gotta do this blind. And thankfully by that point, season 2 was not out yet, so it wasn't a big deal for me, but now we could finally delve into season 2. And we are starting things up with episode 1, A New Roar. And basically we start things up the way that we kind of thought we would, because we start up and it's like a regular everyday day in Sayet Village, now that Naofumi has become the Lord of Sayet. And so at that point he's basically walking around, making sure things are being done, and at the end of his walk, we come to Kung Fu Grandma, who now runs the Adventurers Guild. I love that concept. Kung Fu Grandma runs the Adventurers Guild, because why not?
She kind of reminds me of kind of like the mentor or something from Full Metal Alchemist, you know, like whatever her name was.
Master. No, it's Izumi.
Yeah.
Izumi Curtis.
Just kind of like being the...
Kind of. And she actually is training one of Naofumi's newest recruits, Rishia, where Rishia is training in the same frickin' penguin scuba suit. And it's a nice day, so I'm guessing she's sweltering in there. And apparently it's actually increasing her stats. We kind of find out that Rishia's stats, given her level, because she's not that far off from Naofumi and crew, but her stats are pretty abysmal. And so at that point, Naofumi talks to Kung Fu Grandma and kind of thinks like, I don't know if this is going to work out, but Kung Fu Grandma is thoroughly convinced that she just hasn't found her true calling yet and is trying to teach her how to be a monk. It sounds like, because she's trying to teach her how to channel her ki. So at that point, Rishia is training there and doing her best, but Naofumi has kind of... This is actually going to be one of my complaints about the episode, because Naofumi's attitude towards her in the beginning of the episode kind of changed from what it was in the previous episode. But I won't explain too much until we get through the episode. Then the village is attacked by these weird bat familiars that they don't really know anything about. They were easy enough to take out because Raftalia and Philo were on the job. But as soon as Naofumi tries to take some of the materials, he notices that it's like a familiar shield that he gets. And he immediately warns the castle about what actually happened. Because the other big problem that seems to be happening is that they were getting ready for the next wave, which was like 7 days out. And the countdown, as soon as the Bat Familiars came in, the countdown stopped.
Which is weird.
So it's stuck at 7 days. And so that was a little alarming. So he let the queen know, and basically the queen's answer to this was summon all of the other heroes, because it turns out the other heroes were dealing with bat familiars like that too, out of nowhere. And when they explained, what they were dealing with, Queen Morella basically says the only thing that we can think of that this is that it is the rise of the spirit tortoise, which is it's basically a beast that runs a rampage through like several territories, and basically is trying to reclaim its kingdom, which Mel Remark is currently, as well as the outlying villages, is kind of a part of. So at that point, it's just trying to reclaim its territory, and it does not care what it's going to kill along the way. Now, the heroes all respond to this as we kind of expect them to, because they basically are a bunch of, pardon my French, Andrea, a bunch of fucking pussies. And they all immediately walk out, and they're just like, nah, we won't worry about it. And Naofumi's assumption on this, I think, is accurate, because since they're, again, touched into that MMO logic, they basically looked at the Spirit Tortoise as like this big world boss, this big raid boss, and they obviously weren't ready for it. So they're just like, oh, well, I'll just go deal with the stuff in my territory and keep leveling up, kind of thing. And so they all walk out. The queen is able to convince Naofumi to at least help out, because he is also concerned about the countdown timer to the next wave stopping, and wants to see what's going on here.
Well, I think Naofumi was more like, willing to help out on that.
Yes.
As much.
Well, he basically kind of looks at it going, well, it sounds to me like we won't be able to deal with the next wave unless this is taken care of, and this is already creating problems. So might as well go out there.
Yeah.
Might as well go out there and help. But he is also very irritated that the other heroes aren't willing to help, but he kind of gets their mentality and why they're not willing to do it. I'm not saying that they're justified or anything like that. I think it was a douche thing to do, but because, again, this isn't an ML. This is just, again, the sign of their disconnect. They literally are thinking of this as a game world, not as a real world. Mm-hmm. And Naofumi does not see it that way. But when the other heroes walk out and rejoin their parties, we get to have this uncomfortable silence between all the other parties, including Rishia getting basically the evil eye from Itsuki's party. And as soon as Itsuki comes out and they start walking away, Rishia, who it's starting to become painfully clear, either she has a major crush on Itsuki, or is straight up have my children with Itsuki. Like she's basically in love with him, right? Mm-hmm. And he actually does ask her if, he does like keep pleasantries with her, basically saying that, have you written your family and have you kept in contact? And she says yes. And he's like, oh, that's good to hear. And then the other party members step in, specifically the drunk guard that Raftalia kicked the trash out of. He steps in and goes, the bow hero doesn't want weak people in his party. And Itsuki tells him to stop, but doesn't really chastise him for it. And at that point, you could tell that, like, Rishia's poor heart is broken, because she really wants to go back to the bow hero, and they kicked her out of the party. So Raftalia and Philo immediately step up and say, okay, let me, let's try to help you out. Let's try to help you increase your stats so you can be strong enough to win the trust of Itsuki again. I should point out Melty's not with them. Melty actually is running Sayet while Naofumi is gone, which was actually kind of an interesting character development for her, because even the queen is like, well, this will be a good bit of experience in being able to lead. And so unfortunately, it doesn't look like Melty is going to go along, but my guess is because Rishia is basically going to take up Melty's spot. Mm-hmm. So at that point, Raftalia, they join back up with Naofumi, and they're trying to figure out how to handle the Rishia situation. And Raftalia makes, I don't know how to say this, it makes sense from Raftalia, but it's also very morbid and kind of a step in the wrong direction as far as I'm concerned. She basically says, well, why don't you start up a slave pact with Naofumi? Because in her opinion, she would then gain the strength of the shield hero. Like, she's under the impression that through her slave crest, she gets additional stats from the shield hero. And there was nothing on the character sheets that come up that show any of that. And so she's like, why don't you go ahead and start up a slave pact? And Naofumi, obviously because he's uncomfortable with the fact Raftalia has a slave crest and he doesn't want that relationship, obviously is very much, you don't have to do this. I'm not gonna force you to do it. And Rishia openly accepts. And she gets a slave crest where all of the girls have gotten slave crests before, including bitch. Right there, right above the boobage. I don't know if that's just the place that it has to be, but because I don't think Motoyasu has that, or he has a slave crest because of bitch, but I don't think it's on his chest. I think it was like on his hand or something.
Oh, I didn't even think they did get those just because.
No, he did, because you remember when they were interrogating her.
Yeah, but I thought it was more like he only had to probably donated a little bit of blood to.
No, I think he had. Yes, his blood is used. Mm-hmm. That's right, because Naofumi doesn't really have a crest either.
Yeah, so it doesn't make.
Yeah, okay, good point. But still, it's kind of creepy that she willingly takes the slave crest, and not exactly where I wanted this to go. Look, it's already a difficult argument because of Raftalia wanting the slave crest. Like, you can understand her character wanting it because she just doesn't see any other way. She, like, this is what she, to her, the slave crest is more a symbol of affection than it is what it actually is. Mm-hmm. And I think Philo also has one, and she also kind of views it the exact same way, because as far as Philo is concerned, Naofumi is her dad. Mm-hmm. Because he's the one that hatched her. But Rishia, like, what's going through your head when this happened?
I'm just like, okay, that's just awkward, but okay.
Because you can't necessarily fault Naofumi here. He maintains character in the fact that he wants Raftalia to get rid of the slave crest. He doesn't want her to have it anymore. And he basically says, like, when you want to get rid of it, I will be more than happy to get rid of it. But he willingly takes on Rishia, and he understands her reasoning too, which is that she wants to get stronger for Lord Itsuki.
I think he's just like, you know what? He's like,
well, I think he basically gets dragged along. He's just like, okay, if this is what you want to do, then we can do it.
Yeah, I think he just does it like, because he lets his party members make that call, and he's like, okay, if that's what you want, I'm just.
But yeah, she agrees to do it, and therefore Rishia, Raftalia, and Philo all head out, along with Naofumi, head out to the border area that the attacks seem to be happening at, where we're guessing the Spirit Tortoise's presence is starting to be felt. And they come across, like, refugees as they go along, and, you know, basically Naofumi trying to explain to Raftalia and the others, like, they're refugees, they don't have a place to go because of probably what's going on with the Spirit Tortoise. They eventually get to a kingdom where immediately you can... Oh, yeah, the other is when they get to the kingdom, they actually overhear that other heroes have been killed by the tortoise. And immediately the assumption is that Motoyasu, Itsuki, and Ren have all fallen to the Spirit Tortoise. Like, they all, I guess the presumption is they all banded together to go fight it and ultimately lost. So at that point, you know, Naofumi is kind of distraught. He doesn't know what to think about that.
Well, you wouldn't think that Naofumi would have.
He was distraught about it, but not as much as Rishia. As soon as Rishia hears that, she immediately is like distraught and cannot be comforted. So much so that Naofumi, on the way to their journey, they actually find out that Vittoria has this connection to Philo via the cowlick, where it basically becomes like this radar dish. It's like, oh, look, Philo gets good cell reception out here. And so immediately when they realize that that this happens, Naofumi is like, can you ask Vittoria if the other heroes have perished? Because she would be able to tell. And Vittoria says, no, I haven't felt that they have died. So this kind of calms Rishia down just in time for basically another attack. And it's not just the bat familiars that are showing up. Now we also have these weird, I want to say like wolf/monkey familiars show up too. And this is actually where you can see a weird turtle shell on all of their backs. And I'm guessing this is the marking that they are allied with the spirit tortoise. And so it becomes a big fight scene where they have to basically hold off all of these other familiars while also trying to keep the refugees and the villagers alive. And it gets difficult enough to a point where Naofumi actually has to unleash his Wrath Shield. So the Curse series. And obviously Raftalia is not on board with that, but he's able to hold things off without hurting himself too badly. But it definitely gives you an impression that this is not going to be an easy fight, even for Naofumi. And that's kind of where the episode ends, is like, you know, now we're seeing this new threat. We're seeing the stakes that are being presented to us. So at that point, what did this episode do right, Andrea?
Well, just for the fact that, you know, it seemed like, you know, like the other, you know, like the shield hero is like, okay, well, he'll take on any challenge that, you know, it's becoming an issue.
Well, he's reluctant about it, but even he admits, like, this could be a problem.
Yeah.
So at that point, he's willing to go help. How did you feel that Melty's not going to join him?
Yeah, it would just still kind of feel weird about her.
I would almost wonder if it's still kind of a nerf, because again, she didn't go to Kalmyra with them, so she didn't get like the major level increases that they got. Thankfully, Rishia is pretty close, but she was still part of Itsuki's party at that point, so that's probably the reason. But maybe that's a good idea, and maybe it's just a better idea for her to learn how to be a ruler, as opposed to, you know, being able to do the cool dual techs with Philo, which I will miss, because dual techs are fucking awesome.
Yeah, but it just seems like you already got, well, someone's gonna have to be like in line to the throne, and you can't see her going off joining any parties.
I mean, for Philo, you could. But then again, I think the queen would join the party if it meant like she could meet Vittoria.
Oh, that's true.
That will be a good episode where eventually Vittoria flies to the castle, and the queen just basically loses it. She literally pees her pants because she gets to meet the Philolial queen, and I will facepalm so hard that day. How do you feel about Rishia as a party member?
Well, I know she's still trying to learn and all that. The most annoying part is that she's
I
still...
said as a party member. What I meant is like as a character right now. I mean, continue with your party member stuff, but also as a character. How do you feel about Rishia as a character here?
But it's so hard to take her serious when she still pines over the bow hero.
Yeah. I mean, like, does she annoy you because of that, or do you just feel bad for her, or like what goes on in your head when you saw like the moments with Itsuki? And
I mean, it's kind of pity, like sad, really, but you know.
Yeah, it wasn't annoying to me. It was just depressing because she basically is that one girlfriend who doesn't know how to let go.
Oh, yeah.
Thing. It could be a boyfriend too. That does happen. But basically, the way that they're kind of treating this is that Rishia has recently been broken up with, and she can't get over Itsuki.
Yeah.
And so, like, her resolve is to get stronger so she can be with Itsuki. And so at that point, like, it's kind of admirable, but at the same time, the way she presents herself is, like, she's shy, and she presents herself to be a bit more of a bookworm than, like, camper or adventurer. But I mean, she's had to. The thing that throws me off with that is, like, she's already had to do some of this, because she was part of the Bow Heroes party for, 25 episodes up until this point. So you'd think that she'd at least have some kind of moniker of being able to handle that, and it just doesn't feel like she's ever adjusted.
Yeah, and it's just strange how long it took for her to get kicked out of the party,
Yeah, and it's not really clear. Like, they say it's because she was too weak, and I still suspect that there were other motives why she was kicked out.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have been surprised why she wasn't kicked out very early on.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things I suspect, too. Is, like, if she was really this weak, then why didn't Itsuki kick her out in, like, episode 3? Kind of thing. But he kept her. Why? You have a lot of those concerns, and I have a feeling that we're going to learn a lot about Rishia in this arc, because she's now the new party member, and they're trying to get her stronger. What did you think about the Spirit Tortoise as a threat? And by that, I mean the familiars as well. The fact that it looks like they are not miles, but it does look like they are a certain amount above what Naofumi can do.
Well, it's always nice to have a little, aside from the waves, it's nice to have something, different happen once in a while. I mean, you can't just expect them just killing trash mobs all over the place. Eventually you gotta have some.
You gotta have something to challenge you. Mm-hmm. What did you think about Motoyasu Ren and Itsuki's response to this?
I would say it's disappointing that they're...
I'd say it makes sense to what we've been presented with them. Again, they're looking at this like a video game. They're not looking at it like a real world. So like, oh, raid boss, well, we're still too weak. We shouldn't take this on.
I mean, that's true, but it also sounds like, well, it's not something of interest in them to get involved.
And the other thing, too, is like, I think the kingdom put a silver spoon in their mouth, and now they... Like, the second that something hard looks like it's coming their way... I mean, granted, they've had their asses kicked to them by Lark, by the church, roughly, and now the Spirit Tortoise technically has kicked their ass. So maybe they're just kind of fed up with having their asses kicked and they want to go work on themselves. But still, even if I was, like, underpowered, I'd look at this and go, well, it's probably major, like, buku XP for me.
Well,
and
I
on
think...
top of that, if they actually treated it like a real world, they probably would have stepped up and said, we have to defend this world because, we're a part of it.
Yeah, but you would think they'd be a little bit more, like, say, this could be something worthwhile to do, but they could say, well, but we're not fully prepared, so we better go take care of that, and then we'll meet up at that point. But it just seemed like they were disinterested and had their own agendas to do.
Pretty much, and that's kind of the annoying part that comes out of it. So we've talked. Are there any other positives that we want to bring up with this episode?
No.
Okay, so negatives. What did this episode do wrong? I already have one, and I want to bounce it off of you.
Okay.
Okay, think back to the previous episode and what Naofumi was doing to get to say, like, Rishia, join my party, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just me, or, like, halfway into this episode, we see a radical, like, in the opposite direction change of Naofumi's character, where he's kind of treating her like she's trash, but then he kind of fixes it after the slave crest? Because that annoyed me a little bit, because he was like, it felt like, dude, you are doing the exact same things that you were pissed that Itsuki did with Rishia. at the beginning, where he's like, yeah, her stats are kind of abysmal.
Well, is this the season that we get the new actor in?
Yeah, this is where the new actor stepped in.
I mean, he does sound very similar to almost the other one. So
yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about.
I know. Like, I'm just trying to figure, because I mean, you never know if it might have been just how it was written. But no.
They literally didn't bring in the other guy to voice him in season 2. He once he announced that he had colon cancer, he was out. So this is the same actor, but
okay.
But that what I'm saying is, it's like, did that bother you that like his attitude at the beginning of the episode was, wow, she is kind of crap, and then as soon as she gets the slave crest put on, he's back to that. He's back to where he was the previous episode.
It was very weird, but I think maybe it's just him trying to find a way to kind of...
I don't think it's a character thing. I think it was a writing thing. And it's kind of annoying.
Well, yeah, you just wonder if they kind of be like, well... But I mean, if it was a character thing let's just say hypothetically, if it was a character thing, maybe he was just trying to, try and snap her out of her whole, like, too focused on how weak she is, and then maybe kind of be like, well, you know what?
So this is a negative for me, because it just feels like somebody, like halfway through this episode, somebody else was writing Naofumi, and it's kind of a whiplash effect. So it's definitely something that I would like to not see in the future. Don't do the whole, like, let Naofumi be Naofumi. You're not trash. We'll help you out, kind of thing. Like, let him be that. Don't have him go down the same road the other heroes of, like, oh, well, her stats are trash, and I don't know, she seems like a lost cause, Granny. Stuff like that, because that got really annoying.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that means he would just kick her out of the party. I think he's just trying to find a way to motivate her.
I don't think so. I don't think so either, but it still was like a weird mood change. Because at that point, it's like almost indicating to the viewer, like, oh, you shouldn't have faith in Rishia. Rishia's a lost cause.
Well, that's true, but he's got to prepare for the waves, and, he has to have them be fully ready. It's like you can't afford to be,
I will say another negative in this is the damn slave crest. Really? Like, this is now 3. That, like, Philo, Raftalia. I'm willing to make that argument for you people. Rishia was the line, all right? Because, like, I get her reasoning, but I don't think you needed the slave crest for that. So, yeah, that's a negative to me. You didn't need to go that far, and I don't know what that's going to mean in future episodes. What about you? What do you think was negative here?
Just the whole thing about, Naofumi thinking, the other heroes perished. Because during that whole, like the meeting with the, with the queen and all that, when they just seemed like they didn't have an interest of going to find the spirit tortoise. So how could you expect them to actually get involved with the fight with it, unless it happened to stumble across them and kill them on the spot? But
that would be the guess anyway,
because otherwise you'd be like, you know what, unless if they decided to go challenge, and it's like, well, I thought you guys didn't want to go up against it, so
yeah,
it's like
they're starting to get a little annoying. I'll give you that, because of their reactions.
But it's kind of like, it's like, well, Naofumi could have just been like, not surprised that they ended up getting killed.
I don't think he was distraught for that long, because like he had the thought of like, okay, this real world can kill us, but I think Rishia was the more distraught,
which makes sense. But Naofumi's like, well, could have been more surprised.
That it would probably be surprised, and then eventually he's like, oh, well, we can just ask Vittoria, because Vittoria has openly said, like, she has a connection to the other heroes.
In fact, why can't Vittoria go and freaking get knock some sense into the
I'm
other
glad
three?
you brought this up. That was another thing that kind of came up to me, is like, the biggest problem here is that all three of these jack-offs need a reality check, and hard. Vittoria, stop bitching to the shield hero that he's not doing his part. Go make them do their part. I'm almost tempted, like, the next four Heroes Council, Naofumi needs to bring Vittoria to slap them all.
In fact,
And also, like, have their interactions be seen by Vittoria so that she realizes, oh, you guys are the jack-offs. Naofumi's actually trying to fix things.
yeah, and he tries, but
Also, I
he
just want to see her
can't
slap them just to see if they fly out the window. You know, giving her strength. Sorry, go ahead.
It's like he can only do so much, but he's not going to play mommy towards the other three. It's like,
But that's kind of what he's doing right now. He's trying to be the den mother, and there's no point because they all look at him like he's cheating and he's not playing the game right or whatever. So at that point, okay, so stop preaching to Naofumi that he's not doing the right thing. Go and meet these other jack-offs and see what they're doing. Like, I'm pretty sure if you came down on them, like, in your Philolial Queen form and tried to wreck up the castle and then immediately turn down and go, I see the problem here, you're just being a jack-off, then at that point she'd probably look at Naofumi going, well, I still think you could do more, but... Because he probably could. I see you could still do more, but you're at least doing something. These guys aren't. Kind of thing. And then at that point, at least it's that monkey off of Naofumi's back. But that's me. Okay, so we've gone any other negatives?
no.
Okay. So
Although the penguin suit, I forgot. What's that thing have to do with?
it is a stat increase. Like I told you when I went back to look at the character sheets and all that.
Still a penguin's suit.
Believe it or not, it actually took her stats up pretty high. And a lot of them, too. It was like 4 of them.
Yeah, but couldn't there have been a better outfit?
I'm sure there could have been, but it wouldn't have been as silly. So, yeah, it's dumb. And it's also weird that she's also okay with it because it gives her the stat increases because...
And she just doesn't like people watching her, staring at her.
Yeah, it's also part of her shyness thing. So, I guess if it works for her, then fine. You know, I have a feeling... that one of the points of the season is going to be to help Risha with her shyness. So, all right. So we've gone over the positives, the negatives. Out of 5, what would you give a new Roar?
I guess just probably a 4, maybe.
Okay. And the reason for it?
It's just it's a fine episode. I mean, it has its good and it has its bad, but you know.
I'm going to give it a 3, but it's just because it is what it needs to be. It's not good, it's not bad, it's building up a new threat, so it's kind of essential, and the way that they did it, I don't really have any complaints aside from character decisions, which can have a payoff later on. All right, fine. You can have the slave crest. You can have the slave crest. Hopefully it pays off. Because when I saw the stats when they came up, it didn't really look like she gained any benefit from it. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll find out otherwise, but...
Maybe it'll get...
Because according to the episode synopsis that we have, I guess Raftalia was thinking that it would give her some kind of an XP boost. And again, I didn't see anything...
Maybe not
go up.
Maybe not
when the slave crest activated.
Maybe not that. Maybe it'll give her a confidence boost.
Maybe, but why did you have to use the evil magic? I don't know.
It worked for her apparently. Maybe she thinks it would help her.
So yeah, it's a 3 out of 5 for me. It's not good. It's not bad. It's what it needs to be. And that'll go ahead and do it for this episode. When we come back, we will be back with episode 2. and hopefully things will start to heat up. We'll have a few questions answered, and hopefully we'll start to see the makings of Rishia getting a backbone, because that would be really good. Until then, thank you guys so much for joining us on this journey. We appreciate it. And of course, if you're brand spanking new, you can support the podcast on YouTube, Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Player.fm, and Spotify. And if you want to leave a review on any of those or be able to like them on any of those, that would be very helpful. We definitely appreciate it. And like I said, we will be back for episode 2. And also, if you want to make a suggestion of series that you want us to review, movies you want us to review, etc., you can do so at geekyweek@gmail.com. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you guys next time for episode 2 of Rising of the Shield Hero.